Okay, so this project is a reservation system that I created for a screen golf business. So screen golf is when you're actually able to play golf indoors. It lets you practice in the winter. You're able to actually play a course towards a screen, and it's going to project where you would have landed in the green based on how you hit the ball. So the requirement for this was to build a web app where the owner can see the reservations that's been created, book new reservations, and then modify the previously created ones. And so I built this project using React for the front end, Node.js for the back end, and then PostgreSQL for the database. So I'm going to start with a quick tour of how the app actually looks, and then we can move on to the code. So first is the login page. All right, so we're going to start by logging in, just putting in the username and password, and so then if you have the correct credentials, you can click sign in, and then it'll take you to the calendar. So this calendar view is actually going to be a week calendar view. It lets you see the current week, and then using the arrows up top, you can actually switch back and forth to look at some previous weeks or future weeks. The next view you're going to look at is going to be the single day page view. And so there's two ways to go about this. This way that I'm showing you right now, where you kind of click through the dates. And then the second way is going to be if you actually just like click on the date itself in that original calendar view. So what you see here are going to be all the reservations for this each day, and then so this is going to be for August 30th, 2019 that you see on top, and then you have these gray boxes that indicate which station they're going to be in. There's 6 stations total, so you can see which reservation is at which station for each time. And then finally, there's going to be 2 forms that can be filled out. So the first one, you just click here, new reservation, and then you're going to get the new reservation form. You fill it out, submit reservation is going to be created. The next is actually you want to select a reservation. So you go into the date, select a reservation, and if you do that, you're going to see that everything's like populating up there. And this is what you're going to be using for updating or making changes to the reservation or deleting the reservation itself. Making those changes and then clicking on the buttons on the bottom. All right, so that's pretty much the experience. So the next thing we're going to do is dive into the code. So I'm going to start off with the back end, and then we'll do the front end afterwards. So the first HTTP request that we're going to look at is going to be a post. And so this actually confirms the login credentials. If the login credentials are not correct, it's going to return an error. The next is going to be a get, and so this one pulls the reservations for the requested week from the database into that calendar that we saw, and so that's going to allow all that information to be rendered in the calendar view for the front end. And then if there's no reservation for the week, you're actually going to get notified about that. The next one is going to be another get, and so this retrieves all the reservations on a given day. Again, the notification if there's no reservations on the selected date like previously. Okay, and then the next one is going to be a post. So this is one of the more fun components that I got to work on. And so this is actually where you're going to take the reservation information and actually write it to the database. A few things that I want to point out. So the first is end time. So if you take a look at it, it's actually automatically determined. And this is based on the logic that each reservation length is going to be 1 hour per person in the group. And so I did some math there so that you're able to automatically get that to populate. The next thing I want to point out is that if any of the required fields are missing, we're going to return an error, so making sure there's no user mistakes there. And then the next is going to be that I do have something in here to make sure that we're checking to make sure there's no conflicts in reservations, so you don't have too many reservations at one time. And so if there's no conflicts and there is a station available, you're going to get one station automatically assigned. And then if there are no stations available, you're going to get notified about that. So then the next component is going to be this put statement. And so this is actually used for updating the existing reservations, so that last form that you saw. And so this follows the same steps as what I just described in the post statements. And so if there's no conflicts, the reservation is going to be updated. And I really enjoyed building out these last portions, the automated parts of creating a new reservation and then updating the existing one. It was really fun to work through the back end logic of all of this, and it was really a fun, complex portion of the project. So then the next couple, the final couple actually, it's going to be a delete request, really straightforward, used for deleting existing reservations. And then finally, the get request that I have at the end. So the purpose of this one is to look up information about customers, such as the phone number, really get a customer database going. but the owner decided they didn't want to use a customer database yet in their business, and so I kind of just left this for the future because I do recommend they, start keeping track of that and use it. Okay, so that was the back end, and now we can move on to the front end. So here is the root component of the web app. First few functions here do things like check to see if the user information was remembered, sign out, pull in user information, or pull in reservation information. I also have a custom function in here, and that's going to be this parse reservation date. And what this does is actually going to convert dates from the database into strings, and that's going to really make sure it's rendering properly. And now I can walk through the main routes that I implemented. Okay, so let's see. The first one here is going to be view day. This one loads the reservations for one day, renders them to the app. The next one is going to be where it loads the reservations for the given week, and so this one's going to be calendar. It just kind of loads the reservations so that you can see them all. The next one, sign in. So this one is going to be used when a user logs out, and then it allows them to return to the home page, so you're not seeing that information if you're logged out. And then finally, the last two routes are for making new reservations and then updating the existing ones. Okay, so then moving on to sign in. So in the sign in here, I have a couple functions for updating the state of the password and username, and one to create a remember me flag. And so this is going to be used so that you only have to log in once, click remember me, and then you don't have to keep logging in each time. Only when once they hit submit, you're just going to check to see if the credentials are correct, and then if it is, it's going to direct them to the calendar component, that view that we first saw. Okay, so then in the calendar component, so the reservations here for the given week are passed here. Convert hours and render reservation functions are used to convert dates to strings that I showed for presentation on the calendar. And then the next three functions here, you're going to have render header, render days, render cells, and so this is used to all render the calendar. And this whole component was really challenging for me because I never created a calendar before this project. And so what I did was I found publicly available code for a calendar, and then I did modify it to fit the needs of the client because they wanted to be able to look at that clear week view instead of looking at a month view, because they do their reservations and their bookings based on each week. Let's see. And then on date click here selects a date to view all the reservations on that given day and takes them to the view date component. Next week and previous week here are just used to update the calendar view. All right, so then now we're going to move on to view day. So this is so this contains the same time parsing as the calendar component, which I already kind of discussed. Render reservations that I have here on the bottom. So this is going to be used to create the view of all the reservations for a given day. The view is going to be presented as a table. So rows correspond to times, and then columns is going to be the screen golf stations, those rectangles in gray that we saw. And so then the user can click on a button to go back to the calendar, or they can select the option to make a new reservation, which is going to take them to new res or new reservations. So looking at new res, and so here you have functions for updating the properties of the component. And so this component is a simple form. Users can input all the information for the reservation, and then it also has a function for passing the input reservation details to the back end. It's going to be that on submit reservation. And then finally, change res. The last component here, it's very similar to the new res. So the only difference here is going to be the reservation details are being pre-populated. So you're doing that here. And that's going to be based on which reservation is actually updated. Otherwise, it's the same as the last component. So you have all that. Okay, so overall, the owner of the business was very happy with the reservation system I built for them. I learned a lot working on this project, and it was really exciting to see how much I could take on. And I'm really excited to continue to make more projects and challenge myself.